Hello, welcome to Jason Cavness Experience. I'm your host, Jason Cavness. I'm also CEO founder of Cavness HR. At Cavness HR, we deliver HR to companies with 49 or fewer people. The AI-powered platform while also providing you with a dedicated HR business partner. The Jason Cavness Experience is sponsored by Solid Labs. Solid Labs specializes in delivering Internet of Things, AI, and machine learning to streamline operations and drive innovation. If you're a non-tech founder looking to build out an MVP, they can do this for you at 70% of the development costs and 30% of the on-time costs. We're also brought to you by 8-Bit Content, a content marketing agency specializing in boosting awareness and leads for its businesses. As a listener of the Jason Cavness Experience, you can receive a free site audit to help identify opportunities for growth and improvement. Our guest today is Zhang. That's how you say it, never Zhang?
Yeah.
Zhang today. Zhang, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So Zion, skip a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. So I always come to a softball question. What do you do for fun, hobbies, stuff like that?
Yeah. I do. I guess I work in my business for fun. I'm building Ponder for fun. I think it's quite challenging to have other things or pure hobbies besides schools and besides business if I want to do decently well on either on both of them. But yeah.
So Ponder, does the name Ponder mean anything, or is it just something you put out of the hat, so to speak?
It's more like an accident. Actually, it's quite interesting story. When I starting out last year, I don't have a huge network of technical co-founder and engineers. So I went on YC co-founder matching, and the first technical co-founder I matched with, actually he used the name Ponder, or he came out with the name Ponder. So after putting more thoughts into it, it's an amazing name like that. And the ironic thing is that's the biggest thing he left for Ponder, because I think he stopped ghosting me after 2 weeks, and yeah, here I am.
I know they always say find a co-founder, but it's not easy as it seems like. They make it seem like this like myth. Go online, go to this place, find a co-founder, and like be this instant marriage, be successful. Like that shit is hard as whatever, right?
It is, and I see people saying find a right co-founder is like finding a wife, and I don't think YC co-founder matching, that platform, is doing a great job. I find it really hard to find someone just purely online, and I'm curious to see if there's any actual successful startup who either went to YC or find their co-founder in their online platform. I'm curious to see that.
Yeah. So you started this company at the age of 17, correct?
Yeah.
But you actually had a previous startup.
Mm-hmm.
What age were you at when you started that startup?
Yeah. I did a couple of projects when I was a kid. Start from 15 years old. I kind of get into a bunch of stuff like building my own monitor, my own iMac, because I can't afford an Apple Studio display. I also was working on some sort of mask microphone idea. But how I started is really, it's quite a journey, and it's because of you, Jason. Like the first, yeah, because do you remember the networking event you hosted last year?
Yeah, the small business conference, yeah.
Yeah, that was the first networking event I went to.
Yeah.
And I met my very first mentor, Vlad, there.
Vlad's a good guy.
Yeah, and right now this is my first podcast, so.
Hey, keep talking. I gotta fix the camera fast, but keep talking.
Yeah. But yeah, and after a meeting with Vlad, I started marketing. Well, I started a marketing agency under Vlad's guidance, but we didn't really try to make money. Part of it is because my F1 visa. We were just offering cold calling business and to offer SEO payouts for them for free.
So man, so you know how to build your own computer?
I wouldn't say like 100%, but like it wasn't a computer. It was more like a monitor.
Okay.
And I bought a board from eBay, and it takes a bit of programming and figure it out. But
and you just taught yourself?
Yeah. It's it was interesting. That's what I like to do.
So why do you think some people are able to like teach themselves stuff and learn on their own, and others are like pretty much have to be spoon-fed information, and even then they can't, do it?
Yeah, I think it's quite the opposite. I think it's because of people are getting used to or spoon them on information so they can learn by itself. And if you take it literally like thousands of years ago, when people are just when they're learning how to setting up fires or how to make different tools, there's no professors or teachers telling them, oh, here's how you do it. But they actually start with a demand, and because of demand, that idea, they go out there and try different things, and they mess up, and then they learn something new. And that's still how people learn today.
I think that's one thing people don't realize, like how many experiments the human race has done. Like how many times, I'm sure some man, some random place didn't just start a fire instantly, right? They probably tried thousands of times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how many times did someone like, eat poison ivy before they said, okay, I'm probably not going to eat this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or how many times did somebody go try to pet a tiger, like all the experience in the past, like eating poison mushrooms. I don't think we realize how many people experience and quote unquote die, to get where we're at right now.
Yeah. It's yeah, and it's still going on. Like it's just in a less risky way, I guess. In terms of in the business side, people are still trying different things, and it's dangerous to take what's true before to this day and do it. Yeah.
So what are some of the lessons you learned from your previous startup experiences that's going to help you succeed with this one?
I think, yeah, that's I like that question. I don't. One thing I learned not necessarily from the previous startup is really having different purpose and having different reason to do a startup rather than just for the sake of making money. And even though we were just doing it for free, it was kind of the goal is to make it successful enough so we can, be successful. But for example, for Ponder, a large reason for I'm working on what I'm working on is really to accelerate the transformation in ongoing in education, to really change the way people learn to a way that we believe that how people actually learn. And all my insights, all my vision is how kids learn, how the next generation learn in 20, 30, or 35 will be radically different than today's education.
So you're 18, still in high school. You have all these educators out there been educated like 13, 14, 50, 40 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why should someone like take your point of view versus all these, bureaucratic educators?
Yeah. I think there are a couple ways to answer that. The first direct answer is there's this curse of knowledge. And I feel, and I already met like educators. I met educators on both sides who has a 40 years experience who disagree with me completely with those, but I also met educators who has 40, 50 years of experience, but be like, oh, you're on the right step. This is what's going to happen. And they are also believing this reform. And I personally think once you step into your field too deep, or if all you focus on is you have a really tunnel vision of being an educator or in education, and sometimes they take like a grand view of the world to see where the world is going, so you can kind of open the vision up and actually know what is the best or where it's heading. It's I will give an example, which is, for example, in education world, there's this MAP score people really care about. It's really testing what the subject knowledge, like for example, eighth grader, what kind of subject knowledge does he have, and they give a score. And there are certain education methods that will give a higher MAP score to that eighth grader if they undergo that experience. But that doesn't mean, and people sometimes translate them directly means the education method is better. But the truth is really is going back to what's the purpose of education, maybe to succeed in the real world. And maybe yes, because of memorization, you get that MAP score higher. But does that really translate to anything in the real world down the line?
Yeah, you're right. Because like in real life, it's more memorization. You got to actually know the knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm. Know the knowledge, executions. A lot of it executions. I have, I'm taking IB business. It's kind of sort of college level business core on the side, and for a semester now, and I have yet to learn a single thing that I use in my startup. So really execution, everybody's figuring it out, and yeah.
And you live with both your parents?
No, I live with my mom. My dad is in Shanghai, China.
Okay.
He worked for Dyson actually.
Okay, but they're still married?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
still married.
So what do your parents think about you doing this stuff? Or they're like supporting you, or they're like Zhang, be a kid, you have all your life to work, or they're like kind of supporting you?
My parents really care about college, and I do think things that I do will translate to their goal and in their perspective too. But a lot of what I do is I still have good grades. I still I still have good test scores. I just don't talk too much about what I do outside
Mm-hmm.
school. And they kind of have an idea, but luckily my parents are not really control freak.
Yeah.
Even though we have different perspective, we believe in quite opposite different things for education. They still let me do what I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
as long as I'm not going to their face and be like, oh, here's what I'm doing and here's
Yeah.
why I should do it. And they kind of know it too. That we can't just
So have you had this conversation yet? I mean, best case scenario, you build Ponder, you graduate high school, and let's say some VC says, here's $10 million.
Mhm,
Obviously, no one's going to give you like $10 million or $3 million to have you go to college, right?
mhm.
Have you had that conversation with your parents? Like, what if you raise money and you got to work in the business full time and can't go to college?
Uh, well, I brought it up as joke
Yeah.
sometimes, and I think that's what I do is I use humor.
Humor, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But my personal plan is, and also they give me a bunch of freedom on what I can do with my life. But my personal plan is keep building what I'm building, grow tractions, and like you said, raise a round of funding. So after going to college, I can have the choice of either applying O1A visa,
Yeah.
which is like a founder visa, to pause college or drop out,
Mm.
or keep studying in the
I mean,
college.
because you have all your life to go to college, right? This startup might be a once in a lifetime opportunity for you.
Yeah, you can always go back to college.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I might be remembering this wrong, but isn't it a time where you reach out to this billionaire, cold call or cold email a billionaire, and he reach out back to you?
Yeah,
Can you
yeah.
tell that story?
That's it's interesting. I think actually I cold email a bunch of different people. I cold email Mark Cuban, Naval Ravikant. I actually just cold email Gary Tan yesterday to get like a ticket for the AI startup school. The two that got back to me have a conversation is the founder of TED, Richard Solomon, which we kind of talk about education. In my cold email, literally I was saying, can we talk about blah blah blah? Can we talk about education? Or here's what I thought. Here's what I thought you think about. And in his reply, he really told me stop using the word education. Use how people learn instead. And I talked with him. He built up like this vision of where education is going. A lot of it is around decentralized education approaches, meaning school will be less relevant and more and teacher will take more guidance role. Uh, and I also cold email this billionaire who he's really low key. He's really undertone, so I probably shouldn't say his name. But he's not well known, but he's pushing like radical transformation in the education space and what he's doing. We will talk about what he's doing down the line, but it's interesting.
And what's the purpose of you cold calling or cold email all these people? What are you trying to get out of it?
The purpose?
Yeah.
Um, I have different purpose for different reach outs. There are a few that I generally think what I'm working on Ponder is going to it might seem arrogant, but they're going to help them build their vision of education. And to get some context, Ponder is kind of we're building an AI mentor that simulate the student's future self to help them build real world skills and the soft skills at agency through projects, their own project ideas. And in my vision, what we are doing is really accelerating their vision of education, what education will become. So that's kind of why I reach out to them and I'd be like, I see what's your thoughts. I'm actually putting the next 20 years of my life to make this happening. Do you want to be part of it? That's one way. And I don't ask really radically. I kind of start with small yes, like what's your thoughts, what's your advice, or do you want me to send you monthly investor updates? And yeah, and we plan to put up a round for during summer. Hopefully this summer a seed round.
So give me a rough estimate. Like, can you tell me like how many of these have you done? Like, make for example, like you've done 100 emails, 100 cold emails, 100 cold calls, and 10 have answered. And then I want to know, like, out of those 100 you sent, or whatever the number is, like, how many will like leave me the fuck alone? Like, don't do this again. Like, how many did you send out? How many were like replies, and how many were like negative?
There's no negative replies.
That's what I thought. That's what I was thinking. So everyone out there listening, like, you gotta do the reach out, right? I mean, most people are not gonna be a douchebag and say, don't email, don't call me. They might ghost, they might not reply. Yeah. I think a lot of people are scared, like, do what you're doing because they're afraid of, like, someone saying, hey, Jason, how do you get my number, blah, 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 you know.
Yeah, 100%. And the other thing I do is I download this software called Streak. It give you like a read recipient to see if they actually read the email or not. And that's kind of helpful seeing, a billionaire or a successful founder actually read your email. And someone like, and you can see they actually sometimes some of them read it multiple times, like 1 days ago, 5 days ago, and then 7 days ago.
That has to be a good indicator.
Yeah. And then I just reach out to them again with a follow up.
So how do you get all these people's emails? Is it a tool you use, or how do you research these emails? I'm sure some of these people like hide their emails.
Yeah. In the early stage, one was just learning, is just guessing their email, first name plus their business domain. And then I found this, I forgot the name, but there are tons of, email, find people email. But basically you just plug in, you put in the website domain, their business ad, and then you put their full name, and it should give you a decent guess.
And are you building upon it yourself? You have like a developer working for you? How are you building it out?
Yeah, I'm more leaning towards the non-technical side. Most of the technical work is done by my current technical co-founder.
And how do you find your technical founder?
From YC co-founder matching.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay. And he's here in the States or somewhere else?
He was here in the States. He's now in India.
Okay.
But he will come back.
And then how do you work this with you being like fucking so many different time zones and all that kind of stuff?
By weekly 2 updates, constantly have calls. One advice I got is if you actually have a great technical co-founder, leave the co-founder things alone. Like if someone is doing technical side, leave it to him. If someone is doing the market side, leave it to him. Just this kind of trust really push it forward. But also I feel having a bad co-founder is worse than having no co-founder. Just be a solo entrepreneur. Even though YC is really, arguing against the idea, I feel from what kind of.
Yeah, I think YC they different when you have a someone tech in their team.
Yeah. And one reason is the chance for like a startup to succeed is so slim that I realize it has to have A+ players. Like all the team has to be A+ players. And if the member is not A+ yet, at least you need to see they are going to become A+ players. And that's really important.
So talk about this. I don't know if you've done this or not, but let me ask you this. Have you and your tech co-founder figured out how to do the equity split?
Equity split? Yeah.
So don't give details, but can you talk about the discussion, like how you figured it out and the process for that?
I mean, a lot of it is the incentive. I think that's why it's beneficial to having different purpose to start a startup. We never had any conflict, or it was just saying, maybe somewhere around the equal split makes sense, and we are kind of just we can't just agree on both sides.
So do you think so those like boomers, I'm Gen X, there's millennial, Gen A, Z, all the different generations. Do you think each generation has been taught to learn differently?
How be taught to be learned differently? Right. I think doesn't matter which generation, they all learn the same, but they might be taught to learn differently in school, and with internet, really, with YouTube, I think it's easier for people to really learn how the brain learn, I guess. Like for example, people think when people are taking notes, they like to take linear notes. But that's not actually how the brain memorize or remember information. What brain does is they have different nuance and it really established based on connections between different nuance. One example is if I bring up Apple, you might think about Apple as a company. You might think about Apple as a fruit. You might think about Apple with Steve Jobs. You might think about Apple with 1 apple a day, make the doctor away. So those are all connections that's put in there. So really, have more of those connections, the better. And one way to do that is really just go out and do it and execute.
Yeah. So one thing we talked about a couple of days ago is like the brain development of boys and girls, right? Like I think the boys' brain doesn't develop till they're 25, girls 21, and all through elementary is like different brain development, right? But yet we put them together. Now I'm not saying that boys and girls be taught differently. I mean, I taught separate. I'm not saying that, but like schools never take that into account, right? Like how girls are so much more developed than boys at early age, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And also there are a lot of I guess from a conclusion aspect, the way how schools group students are fundamentally wrong by both age and by geographic locations. And it's more than really boys girls brain develop differently, and also each person are different. Like I just turned 18, and someone else just turned 18, and maybe I'm radically
Let's go up
different.
just a little bit more.
Yeah, and maybe we are in the same age, but we're radically different. But also you have people like the six core teams, the six engineer of Doge are all under 20 or under 25 years old, and and how they think is radically different from the other 25 years old. But I guess the conclusion is in the future of education, that in my vision, in our vision, how students will develop, how students will group is not based on gender, not based on age, not based on location, but really based on competency, passion, and which stage of life they're in.
Yeah, I mean, since the beginning of school, probably like I'll make this up. Like you have 30 people in a classroom, regardless of what grade, and like it's not like the teachers, like you're the top two, they pay real attention to them because like top notch students.
Hmm.
Then the bottom two, they pay attention to them because they're stuff in the class, they're like bad behavior. But then the 26 in between, they're like okay, that's okay. You got to see you're good enough, right? It's like they spend 90% of the time on these top one and bottom one, and the middle is like nothing,
Yeah,
right?
and yeah, there are a lot of criticism in traditional education, and there are a lot of educators realizing that too, and they're kind of saying, it's the worst. Because in public education system, the score, even though we judge it based on like the MAP score, based on the measures that traditional educators take, it's by no way better. It's by no way good or average. It's horrible. Actually, it's abysmal, even by traditional measures. And from a lot of educators I met or on Twitter, they are saying a lot of reason is because the bottom 5% of the students in the whole class, they kind of ruin the learning experience of the whole class. And there are also, and that kind of tied back to the brain development you were talking about. It's just it just yeah, it's just the trend of traditional classroom, and it does make sense.
And you were born in Shanghai, China, correct?
Yeah.
Did you go to school anytime over there?
Yeah, I went to Shanghai for until I came here during like sixth grade,
Okay.
seventh grade.
Can you do like you might not remember back to sixth grade, but I could do kind of like a comparison between China education and our education system as far as what you can remember, the differences or the similarities?
Yeah, I'll give my personal story first, which is in China, I was actually a horrible student. I was ranked bottom five. In some way, maybe I was the bottom 5% of the classroom. And I remember when I was in lower school, my teachers would call my parents every single week, either about, oh, Zhang, he didn't do his homework this week. He get a 60 on the test, and my parents didn't put me into a lot of actual course load compared to the rest of students. But I think experience back then in some way shaped the way I am, because I was so at the bottom. I was so addicted to other stuff like video game. But in terms of the difference between Chinese education and American education, one thing is actually why I started Ponder in the first place. But second, really they have a much focus on traditional test scores, on the measures of educators, on the measures that traditional educators using, even in here like a MAP score. And I don't think that's a good thing. A lot of it is memorizations. I think one of the things that make American education stands out, even though it's quite broken, is how the college takes a holistic view. They look at your stories, they look at your extracurriculars rather than just a standardized testing score, and that's kind of rare in the whole world, really.
One thing that's always to me has been crazy, and I'm not smart to figure it out, is like the American education system for say kindergarten, 12th grade is like, people say it's trash, it's crappy, it's horrible.
Hmm.
But our colleges are so good, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone from every nation wants to come to us to study, right? So me, it's like, how's this connected? How can we have this horrible public education system
Hmm.
from kindergarten to 12th, but yet our colleges are so they wants to go to college? I'm not smart to figure that out. What do you think the reason for that is?
I think K-12 education is I think most people are overcomplicating like K-12 education, and that's kind of why there's a race of homeschooling and micro school. which by micro schools is kind of like a small organization from like either a parent or like a teacher. They take 3 or 5 homeschooler around their area and to teach them like a particular subjects. Uh, and um, and K-12, I don't think anywhere around the world has a good K-12 education, to be honest. And a lot of reason why American college has such a, I guess such a prestige place. Part of it is because the application is strict, and part of it is also because the network, the brand that Americans college already developed because it's in America. So there are like politic reason too. Yeah.
So from your experience going to school here in the States and from your point of view, what makes someone a good teacher?
Um, that's for me. I have different answer if it's for me or for like average students. I think in the future, what makes a good teachers are not being great at teaching a subjects or not great. It's not about being great at explaining Shakespeare or great at explaining calculus, rate of change, integrals, but it is because we have the thing called internet, and you can literally search up, find the calculus video, and the algorithm will push the best one, and you will see, and you scroll down on the comments, and you will see this calculus video explained better than my professor in 4 years of college, and that's the truth, because really internet really can really centralize great information and decentralize how different source people learn. But in the real life, what makes a good teacher good is the teacher who can actually ignite the passion inside students, ignite the agency. It can transfer from a student who doesn't like to learn, doesn't care about learning, to communicating with them. Why you might be why you should learn this, and to really have them be self accountable and learn themselves.
Have you had any teachers like that in your school career?
Yeah, I have. I think I don't have a teacher that pushed me into from like knowledge agentic or from like a horrible students in China till here. A lot of it is because COVID. A lot of it is because of YouTube actually, and reading books. But in here, I did have great teachers who I really enjoy. Like in my middle school, there's this English teacher I enjoy having conversation with her just about her view of the world. And I'm genuinely curious to hear. Like since I'm at a young age, I really curious. When I was 15 years old, I really curious to talk with people who have 20 years older than me, because I feel they know a lot more about real world, not about English or math, but about the real world and I'm curious to see how their view is. And also, he actually is the one who gave me the idea of start coding, reach out to people. She invited a speaker to my middle school, and I asked her, "Wait, how did you just invite a speaker to our middle school? Like, how did it happen?" And she told me she reached out on Twitter, and I started thinking, "Oh, maybe I can do the same thing." So I started reaching founders, investors who are along my school, and then I become reaching out to Seattle entrepreneurs and join networking event.
So obviously nowadays, there's YouTube University, other courses you do, so anyone can easily learn anything at home, be by myself. But I still believe there's some goodness to being in school, right? Like if you're by yourself all day long by yourself, like how do you learn those social skills? Like how do you learn to cooperate? How do you learn compromise? How do you learn to deal with people? How do we get around that? How does someone like go to YouTube University but still learn the social skills? I think school could still be good for that.
Yeah. And that's actually, I think that's one of the value prop for colleges. Really, is networking, talking with people, meeting people, developing social skills, and the name. And but how public school education or most K-12 schools, the way they structure are not really fostering the right social skill. Like putting 30 students in the same age without judging their mentality is a really easy way to encourage conformity. Meaning, kind of discourage being contrarian, discourage being kids are scared to being different, to think different, to even say different things, and everybody is trying to be likable and trying to make other people trying to follow the same belief as other people.
Basically, trying to be me of the professor, right?
Many,
Like trying to like be what a professor says, they agree with that 100%, so they can get a good
yes,
grade.
professors and to peers too, and it works both when they are trying to be the popular kids. They really care about what other people care think about them. While that's really dangerous for the purpose of education, which is succeeding in the real world. Because think about it, throughout the history, those who push the humanity forward, those who actually provide a huge value, none of them are believing the same thing other people believe in. They are contrarian. They are kind of odd. They are kind of weird, and that's why they are different.
So let's talk about homeschooling, right? Like I know a lot of people homeschool their kids because they don't believe in the values being taught to school or different reasons. But my thing is this, and like I think everyone should be able to like homeschool their kids that want to. But my thing is like I don't need a regulation, but like this might be a bad example. Suppose you have one set of parents, one has a master's of math, one has a master's of English. They're probably qualified to homeschool their kids.
Mm-hmm.
But you have another kid, their parents are like have GEDs, right, or better educated, right, kid, and barely reading right. Like, should they be allowed to homeschool the kid? Of course they should, but it's like, man, what's the one of them have a disadvantage over an advantage over the other one? I think, and how do you make that even? Like,
Yeah. One thing about homeschooling is it largely dependent on the where the parents is at. It's largely dependent on what the parents think or what the parents do really. And I argue the best homeschooling parents or the best teachers, they are the same kind of people, which is those who has a really solid, coherent view of the world, and it's quite objective, and in some way, hopefully, they actually succeed in the real world. And think about, and there are a lot of homeschooling parents choose to do that. For example, Naval Ravikant, like one of the probably most well-known guru in Silicon Valley, he chose to homeschool his kids, and there are tons of examples like that. And one way to really counter that is to is by having is by using school institution like micro schools, by applying organizations like co-ops and those kind of organizations. And what school do, at least right now, is kind of average out. It's basically like a baseline of maybe if your parents are degenerates, they're drug addicts, being in school will at least keep your keep the kids away from those kind of.
and I know some kids,
influence.
the only meal they get during the day is from school lunch or school breakfast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another thing too is like I know a lot of parents they want to homeschool because they don't agree with the school's teaching. But who's to say what your values are, right? Like who's to say the values these parents are the right values to teach your kids? Like what if they are like drug addicts, or what if they are like degenerates, or what if they like all belong to some kind of religious cult, right?
Yeah.
Like that's like I think it's a tough nut to crack, right?
It is a tough nut to crack, and also there are some certain correlation. By the way, there's no scientific. I haven't looked in any research, but it's from like a first principle view of the world. If somebody is a degenerate, somebody like you said, it's less likely for them to be more responsible to the success of their kids. Mm-hmm. Meaning, it's less likely for them to actually care about the education they are, and it's much easier for them to just enroll their kids in public education. And the way to solve that is really have a way better public education, which I believe is we are on the way of going. There are a range of different factors, like we've been saying. Department of Education is going away. We have politics. We have Doge. We have people. We have billionaires who are pushing the education reform. Some examples like there's this university we might want to talk about is University of Austin in Texas, and then we have a high school who been like Alpha School, who literally been going on a Wall Street Journal, who been going on New York Times for the last couple of weeks. Like their press been killing it. I think Elon Musk retweeted them, Reid Hoffman retweeted them, and that Alpha School, all they do is not all they do, but a large part of them is having an AI tutor for each student, and the rest for 2 hours per day on academic work, and the rest of the time they spend on like a personal masterpiece or like a project, for example, starting a business.
Yeah, I think the worst case scenario is like somebody homeschools with kids and they're sexually abusing their kids, like beating the crap out of their kids. Like, so I think if you homeschool, I think it has to be some kind of thing where someone checks on you once a week or something like, like, I think it's just too easy to yeah. And of course it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. And that will be, I think that will be a bigger problem than it is right now. just because how education right now is still in its early stage in terms of the transformation. But it's inevitable that more parents will choose homeschooling, and that problem will arise with that.
Yeah.
And that's hard in terms of different regulations. But I do think,
Because the parents are probably like,
yeah,
"Why are you checking me for? I'm homeschooling for you not to interfere, right?"
yeah,
And I read one day where this with his parents, like they took their kids out of school because in order to enroll the school, had to get some vaccines, and they were like anti-vaxxers. So
yeah,
like, I'm like, is that really a reason to take your kid out of school? I mean, maybe it is, maybe it's
yeah.
not. You know, like I don't know. Like there's a lot, like I don't know. A lot of people have to figure some stuff out that are way smarter than me. I think, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, nobody can really justify to because the reason why they take out homeschooling is because the opinion or their own opinion or their own view of the world, and yeah, that's like not to be cracked.
Yeah. What's your so besides YouTube University? What's some other ways people can teach themselves skills? As YouTube University, there's I think Caruso, Udemy.
Coursera, yeah.
What's some other good tools people can use?
Um, yes, all those online course. Really teaching a skill is really just spread out information. So there are different ways to get information from reading books, from watching videos, from Twitter, from linking posts, from reading blogs, listening to podcasts. But like one of the advice that I ask or I get from multiple mentors is learning really is not about um, getting information. Learning is about execution, and the best way to learn is spend 20% of time getting information and 80% of time using that information to execute. And I feel you will like this. It's actually something I learned from Alex Hormozy. Like,
Yeah, I watch his videos all the time.
yeah, he's a great guy. And he said there are a lot of words people have a hard time to define. And one of them is learning. So think about how does one define learning? And the definition he gave is learning is about different behavior, same condition. So being in the same condition but act differently, and that's just remarkable. And from that point, we'll see learning is never about memorizing information. It's actually about how you act. It's actually about what you are doing right now, and that helping me a lot because sometimes we feel in the trap of thinking we are doing something productive by watching video, but if we are not doing it, we are not learning anything.
Yeah. So you really said maybe a month or 2 months ago, you started posting once a day on social media.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you're building a public. Like, talk about the purpose or reasoning behind like posting once a day and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's I had different reason to post when I started. One of them is because one of the founder I reached out to, he told me to start building public. But then I talked with more people. A lot of people recommend to post daily, and right now my purpose is really to there are different purposes. One of them is to accelerate the vision that I think just putting out there. But really second is to provide enough value to educators and parents who believe in the same thing, who believe traditional education are not going to make their kids succeed. But and I'm kind of giving them, like right now I started writing stories of things they can tell their kids to build skills like agency, self accountabilities, and all those soft skills. And the only way to teach them is really by stories because nobody really listens to logics.
And is LinkedIn your main thing you post on? Or you post on other social media?
I post on LinkedIn and Twitter mainly.
Okay.
And yeah, I just that's the two platforms because I like to write. I think
You're a writer versus a video person.
Yes, and I think writing has more ROI down the line.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can literally just put all your posts in a couple of years and make a book out of it. And I think writing is more.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, writing is more flexible.
That's super smart.
Seems.
So one of your posts, you put build something that adds value to the world. How are you building something that's going to add value to the world?
I will go from like two views. One's from the macro view and the one's from the micro view. In the macro sense, what I want to achieve with Ponder is essentially we are kind of have a free trial for like an unconventional education, and to define unconventional education, there are certain characteristics. With some is putting less emphasis on academic work, putting more emphasis on real world. Go out, build a projects and learn from that projects. And we are And that's what schools like Alpha School or UT Austin been focusing on. Um, but what we are doing is we are going towards a B2C model with like a software approach with AI. So any students around the world, any parents around the world can choose to have their students experience and benefit from this unconventional education. This kind of mini version of free trial unconventional education, and so they can actually, understand the value, and in turn that will popularize the unconventional the division of education that we've been waiting to see. So that's kind of my macro view of the world. I believe education will be radically different, and then that's how I want to push it through the demands of the parents.
So back to your tech co-founder, how did you? Is it a guy or a girl?
It's a guy.
How do you convince a guy to join your team? Like, was he like been in education too? Like, how you convince him to join you?
Yeah, he actually just out of college with a data science degree, and most of them is the vision, the purpose. I think that's one of the things people ignore. It's really about you are not trying to sell a company, but you are trying to sell a journey when it's about investors, and you want people to be part of it.
So who is your customer? Like, who's gonna pay for this?
Yeah. We right now we are kind of experienced with different hybrid approach, but our main tractions are being high school parents and homeschooling students. But we just start trying to tap into the college students approach because those people have the urgency. Like they are literally suffering the consequence of traditional education right now. They are searching for jobs. They are searching for jobs after jobs and getting rejections after rejections. And that's because hiring managers companies knows that right after college, they don't know anything about what would take to actually succeed in a corporation environment. And that's why they desperately need something like a project to kind of prove their skills. But most importantly, we've been seeing LinkedIn posts from hiring managers saying, they keep approached by college students saying, oh, I have this Coursera certificates, I have this this online course certificates, but it means nothing to them because anybody can get those certificates. And what we are trying to do for college students is we are building a new form of certificate or portfolio, which we take a range of time. We track from project start to finish, which is like 10 weeks, and we record every skills progress they make and the difference they made in those 10 weeks step. And that actually go back to one of the definition Alex Hormozy gave to intelligence, which is intelligence is defined as rate of learning, which is basically how fast somebody changes their behavior in the same condition in a given time horizon. And that's what intelligence is, and that's what we are trying to measure. We are trying to measure the intelligence of that individual.
Yeah. So how you find these customers? Like it's like talking about the homeschooler, right?
Yeah.
Like, is there like a Facebook group of homeschoolers go to? Like, how I have to imagine hard to find parents that homeschool their kids. Like,
yeah, I'm pretty active in some Facebook homeschooling parents group.
Okay, so groups like that, okay.
Yeah, so a lot of them is reach out, being in those group. Most of our attractions, we have around 400 people students waiting to beta test on Discord server. Well, around 175 educators and parents go hop on the waitlist, and another like 5+ organizations interested in deploying Ponder once we have a flash out product. And a lot of them, and actually besides Facebook, a lot of them has been coming from LinkedIn.
Okay.
From LinkedIn posts. And
I think one thing a lot of founders have a problem with is figuring out the pricing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about how, I'm sure you haven't figured out your pricing completely yet, but can you talk about how you figure out your pricing, what to charge, what not to charge?
Yeah, just genuinely to be entrepreneur honest, I don't think we have figured out the pricing. And that's one reason is that takes test and trial. And I feel anybody who's saying they did before they ever try anything is kind of BS themselves. And right now we are really tapping, or at least our hypothesis is really tapping into the gamification aspect. We want to adopt a business model where the tokenization of the AI, like permanence token, we translate that into an in-game currency in Ponder platform, and they need that currency to do different things on Ponder platform, really similar to a video game for students. And And yeah, and I have a kind of personal restrictions on that part too. One of them is because I'm on F1 visa, so I can't really generate a revenue. And since I can't generate a revenue before I raise a round of funding, I can test different things and try to see which business model makes the most sense.
So what is the F1 visa for people who don't know?
It's a student visa where international students come to US and then to apply this visa to basically be in US and study. Uh,
But so I'm ignoring this. So if your parents are here, will you just be like under your parents' visa, or that's something totally different?
no, and it depends. It depends on the visa my the parents is at, and most of the time, if you are here for school, you are going to be under F1 visa. But if let's say your parents have green card, I'm sure, and you're under age of 18, I'm sure it's different.
Okay, that's okay. So let's change the subjects. Let's talk about Marcus Aurelius.
Mm-hmm.
So you do a lot of previous readings, right? Like you read his meditation book. So
Yeah.
how long have you been interested in Marcus Aurelius?
I think I'm interested in Stoic philosophy.
Is it crazy? Like this dude was alive like thousands of years ago, and
Yeah.
like his words are still like taken as like 100% truth now. You know,
That's what I've been telling. Yeah, it's
like human race has not really changed.
it is insane. This book's from thousands of years ago, which is spelling wisdoms that most people still not is trying to understand, not trying to do it.
Mhm.
Like there's this Chinese proverb saying, under, combine understanding with doing. Like it's really easy for you to go watch like Ryan Holiday's video on interpretation of Marcus Aurelius. What does he mean by this sensing meditation? But it actually takes a lot to actually do it, and that usually takes time too.
Let me ask you this. Get your opinion on this, right? So obviously tech has advanced like crazy, right? Like in my time, I've gone from Pong to like, all the AI stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in my mind, the first tech was fire, right? But my question was like, despite all these technological advances, all the stuff we can do now, has human challenge has actually improved? Like, has it improved from the time of the Roman Empire, the Egyptians to now? Or are we basically the same intelligence, you think? And just our tech has gotten better?
Um, I think to an extent, that's a great point. And there's this graph I think is if you put every person on the earth, you give them you put them onto a distribution measured by whatever skills or level of intelligence, or let's say if Marcus Aurelius is the top of the graph at his time, he will be a really minor individual, and he will be probably one of the few person at that time understanding the depth of knowledge he understands now. While right now we were seeing more and more people, because of technology we have, and technology not necessarily in the definition of what we are, but like 100 years ago with the popularization of books, with reading, writing, we are able to get more people to the top extent. So basically, we are changing the distribution. We are kind of getting rid of the long tail distribution, and it's really interesting because it's related to the startup as well. If you think about it, the top startups like let's say social media, one of the reasons why social media popularized is because of social media, everybody can make content. Like in the past, we have this long tail distribution where most people don't have the right equipment, don't have the ability, the knowledge to make any content. While with social media, most people are making those kind of contents with just their phone every single day. Yeah.
So back to your co-founder again, like talk about the process between you and your co-founder, or maybe your co-founder did it all, like deciding your tech stack, doing your product roadmap. Can you talk about how you two work on that? It's like, I'm sure you just like didn't randomly pick a tech stack. You have a concise tech stack that does what you need to do. I'm sure you have a product roadmap that does like needs what you to do, right? So how can you talk about that?
Yeah. Actually, I think that's for the tech stack, we can't just choose. We pick the one he's most proficient at, and try and making it works. Which is Java and Python really. But for the product feature roadmap, I think that's definitely one of the mistakes we made. And by the way, this is really my legit, like for a legit startup, this is kind of my first time. So I'm making a lot of mistakes and I'm learning a lot from the mistake I'm making. One thing is, we've been in the past, the feature we've been trying to build. We were not trying to build an MVP or like a proof of concept, but we were trying to build a product, like a mature product, which we are trying to sell to other people. And that didn't align with our plan. And because of that, we started trying to trying to build a solid foundation, try to touch on a little bit on different features, and trying to build everything from scratch, build our own product. Well, the truth is we should have built a proof of traction, proof of concept, and to get people on there, no matter how crappy or how lean it is, and raise a round of funding so we can actually scale and get engineers and to build a fully fledged product. And the most ironic thing is I know this from the very beginning. Like I read books, I listen to podcasts, and there are people saying this. A mentor who told me this advice, but it's really about communication area. I think although it's not a good idea to interfere with the other co-founder, what is he doing on his space, it would be a mistake if there's no communication regularly, frequently on what exactly is doing. Because if at that time I knew every features that was being developed, I would be able to. We wouldn't make that mistake. I would be able to say, no, we should focus on like a proof of concept.
So talk about how you do your schedule. Like, you're doing this full time. You're a full time student. I'm pretty sure your mom has you do stuff around the house. I'm presuming you have some friends you hang out with once in a while. Like, how do you do your schedule? How do you focus on all these priorities?
Yeah, I think what people don't understand is how much it actually take to launch a startup, and that's something I didn't understand as well. It's incredibly hard. It takes a lot of sacrifice, and that means and you are miss out on a lot of stuff. And I kind of sacrifice. I get rid of things that like social, like going on dates, and instead most of what I do is really just school and business and hit the gym 30 minutes per day. But the other thing, but it's hard, but it's rewarding. I think what's hard is always what's meaningful. And my schedule is really just going while being in school. I actually have an interesting schedule. Like while I'm in school, a lot of time we see teachers lecturing in front of the classroom. But usually the way they teach are not, for me, the most efficient way to learn. Like with the teaching an hour, I could easily learn it in 20 minutes with our YouTube video or with AI. So I just work on my business on my laptop while they are teaching and go back to my home and kind of learning it on my own and trying to get a good grade on the test.
And this ain't the same thing, but if you want to be great, you got to take sacrifice, right? I remember Simone Biles, the greatest Olympian ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like they did a movie, like basically like how she missed all her proms, also everything social, had no boyfriends, like basically just gymnastics, nothing else, right? And like it talked about how she sacrificed all these years, like she just missed everything, like really had no friends, just like. But that's whether it's good or bad, it's the price you got to pay for greatness. I think
Yes, and actually Vlad brought up as well. He said, yeah, he told me, I am missing out. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I am missing out on those kind of social stuff, on those what regarded as just a high schooler do. But also on the other side, they are also missing out on the startup opportunity, on doing something meaningful. So yeah.
And just the people you're meeting, is what's better, like meet all these people you're meeting or go to some random high school dance with people your age, right? I don't know. Like, sure, there are pros and cons for both of them, but.
Yes, it is. And I'll be honest, it's kind of hard for me to do. And if you see, the kind of people like Bill Gates, at high school, he was a nerd and he wasn't popular at all. For me, even though I don't think I myself as a nerd, like and sometimes I'm actually quite social. If I'm not working on a startup, I will going around, I will make friends and I talk with a lot of people. And it's going great, and because I have the skills in that, but I kind of need to tell myself, even though it's not something you're bad at, it's something you're actually decent at. You kind of need to choose take that sacrifice, even though people tell you to not.
So, why do you think you and other people, regardless of age, are so driven, and some people are not? Like some people have a saying: the more you do, the more you can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And other people they struggle to work 9 to 5 and they can't even handle that. Why do you think that is?
A lot of it is environment, and actually I met a lot of extraordinary students, kids who even are under my age, who are like 16, 15 years old, and they are already building great software. They are launching successful startup. They are raising funding, and but the thing is, and there's one correlation I see is most of them are homeschooling, and most of them are homeschoolers, and that's kind of one of the insight I get is I think being in a group that's kind of dragging, being in a crowd kind of slow people down. Being if you are in like a place with other 50 students with the same age, it's kind of pushing you to become the average, and it's happening to me too on everyday's life, right? Like people think there are some people who think what I'm doing is kind of weird, kind of odd, but and it's kind of true. It's kind of stand out, but people are basically. I think there's one quote is don't let others' insecurity drag you down.
So for AI, it's another generality. It's like for AI, like people in your generation, like you're 100% of AI as the best thing. A lot of people in my generation, baby boomers, were like, "Oh, AI, Skynet's going to take over and destroy the world," right? How do you how do we kind of combine those two together, right? Like make sure AI is safe at the same time, take advantage of all the advantages of AI.
Yeah. I think that the space, like the AI space on where it's going is there are so many different nuances. So I will kind of give my like really draft vision. I don't think anybody can really say what is going to happen with AI in the next 20 years. With solid evidence. But I do think from like a first principle view again, AI is technology, and what technology does is it either amplify the problem or the benefit, and it amplify the characteristic of a system or like or a person who uses it. And one example is education, right? If you deploy AI in education, you'll see more people cheat on it. You'll see more people cheat on tests, homework with it. And is that the problem of AI? No, it's the problem of education. It's because people always cheat. It just AI make it easier, but that means AI kind of like a magnificent lens that can amplify the influence. Doesn't matter if it's negative or positive. And I think that's the same thing with humanity. Like what matters is who is pushing the AI work. Like whose vision are we building out with AI, and what are we doing it with AI? And I think it's better it's usually from history, usually the optimists who are pushing using technology because of that, usually technology ends up being positive view, because the pessimistic would be like, oh, I wouldn't want to do anything with it because there are too many dangers. Then they actually don't do anything with it. And so those who believe they can do good things with AI actually go out there and build the good things with AI.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are scared, like AI taking the jobs, but people don't realize that every generation this happens, right? Way back in the day, everyone rode horses, the cars came. People were like, oh man, what's going to happen to all the people making horse saddles, or, like, people forget, like, all the horses in the streets with like shit behind them. Someone had a job actually shoving the shit, right? All these jobs went away, right? And of course, they transferred to, like, making cars, mechanics, right? So I just think this happens every generation. I think the challenge is now, I don't think we figured out what the next job is, right?
Yes, and I like the analogy you use for the horse, because it reminds me of a quote Henry Ford said is, if I have go out there and ask people will tell me to make a better horse.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes true with AI right now is people are not seeing what from optimism view what could happen with AI, and regardless of what kind of jobs with AI will make sense. I think that once that kind of takes time, but also it's almost certain that those who don't use AI will be lag behind in this.
What's the saying? Like, AI is not going to take your job. The person you do your job better with AI is going to take your job, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I know someone did a post on LinkedIn a couple of days ago. Some law firm. He was talking about how there's a big law firm, like they said, like have 100 lawyers, like 30 junior lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
They usually, when there's a big case, they have like all the junior lawyers do the research, and so they did an experiment. They had like the junior lawyers do the research in ChatGPT, and they said ChatGPT is way better, right? So now they're like laying off all the lawyers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so my thing is like, is that good or bad, or maybe those junior lawyers should have used AI to make the job better, right?
I think it's short term. from a short-term interest perspective, it might be a negative thing, but from a long term, it's almost always a positive. It's a net positive outcome. And and one of the things is because it just right now the world has so many uncertainty and nuance. Like for example, if the law firm they just apply AI, I assume in today's system they will get pushbacks from potentially from their clients and that's because right now the system is kind of undergoing adoption,
Yeah.
and when it's undergoing adoptions, it's really easy to for like this specific small niche adoption to provide negative outcome just because all the other part of system are not operating under the incentive of using it or leveraging it.
Yeah, I agree. So next, so I'm sure like you get advice, right? Can you break down how, like, for your advice, how do you decipher or how do you decide like what advice is just regular advice, what's good or what's bad? Because of course, I hopefully no one like intends to give bad advice,
Mm-hmm.
but it could be bad based on the point of view or what they've done. Like what they did in like 2005 is way different from 2025, right? So you talk about how you personally like decipher all that.
Yeah, I actually I think there are a lot of things people are not talking about with about a device, not about what kind of device, but literally about the type of device. One thing I realized is all devices are relative, meaning it largely depends on what the stage you are in, the time horizon you are thinking about, and literally everything about that one person who's taking the device. And so in some way, there will be nobody giving you better advice than or judging which advice is better than yourself. Just because I'm the only person who know everything about myself, and so I think it's really important to reflect on that. One other thing I noticed is a lot of devices are quite the opposite of each other. Like it's literally a skill, and they are on the two opposite end, and they all have really right justification. So in that case, it really matters on what kind of purpose that you ask this advice for, or why do you want to do this, and you are getting advice for in the first place.
So next, let's talk about the Department of Education, right?
Yeah.
So Department of Education, I think for some reason people think Department of Education was around forever, right? Was actually started in 1978. So obviously we're doing something right before then. Like we still had schools and making grades and building like physics and different things, right? So it started in 1978, and now President Trump did an executive order to get rid of it, right? And there's a lot of people like trying to fight to keep it around. So what's your take on that?
Yes, I think one thing is Department of Education. It depends on what kind of horizon people are saying for forever, and I argue really what we have for the current education were not around forever, was the byproduct of industrial revolution, was the byproduct of for companies to actually train factory workers to excel at their factory worker or manufacturing job. But then it become obsolete because with machines, right? But if we take the history way back in time, if we take Socrates, the Greek philosophies, and all those Aristotle time, was the education at that time was radically different. And what Socrates really emphasized is really learning through conversation, learning through debates, learning through asking questions, learning, and it's really start from a demand. And he never talked about memorization. He never talked about sitting in a classroom with other 30 students, with a teacher talking about the teacher thing teaching you in front of you. And he never talked about judging like a student's value based on like a test scores. So those things are new things that are being invented after Industrial Revolution actually. And with the Department of Education going away, I think there are short-term. I actually think it's both short-term and long-term positive, but there are some short-term. It's long-term, short-term net positive, but there are some short-term problems with. I see some fellow educators pointing out that there are certain scholarship going away for underprivileged kids. There are certain financial aid going away from for certain research and for certain things that actually matter for kids who wouldn't afford it in the first place. However, in the going away from Department of Education will allow a range of different things, including making the education market more free, including making education more like a free market, and including getting rid of the monopoly that traditional K-12 education have. And that was actually being pointed out by Steve Jobs decades ago, by 1990 something. He pointed out, he's saying the problem of traditional education is K-12 traditional education has a monopoly. And with the monopoly, the admin care less about the benefit of the stakeholder, the customers, which are the parents, right? And what the parents want from education is really to have their kids succeed. So meaning the schools, the education care less about having the kids succeeding, but instead they start caring more about all the other things that they can leverage based on the monopoly, like the press, like the states, like the government, like Department of Education. And going away from Department of Education will be one of the factors that really pushing this education reform along with other factors.
Yeah, it is like a lot of these educators, especially the bureaucratics, the admin people. A lot of times, it's like they're more concerned with protecting their six-figure salary versus actually educating the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people they're talking about, if the education department goes away, how do you protect kids with disabilities, learning things? But I think they just like transfer that, like maybe Health and Human Services, like all these important things, they're just transferring to another department versus education. A lot of people will say, well, you need a part of education, you protect like civil rights, racism, all that kind of stuff. Or like a lot of stuff happened in the 60s and it was fixed,
Yeah.
by different organizations, right? And my thing too is like, I don't know the numbers, but like, and I could maybe make this up, hopefully I'm not, but like, if you like 1970 now, like, has anything improved, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think all the stats for everything actually like has gotten like worse, right? Scores, tests, like nothing's improved since 1978. You would think you have this Department of Education at the federal level that like is like bam, like this improved, that improved, or IQ's higher. But as far as I know, like I said, I could be wrong. Nothing has improved. It's gotten worse, and at best it stayed the same.
Yes, and just back to the point you were saying about mean too. There's actually this interesting graph saying in the last 10 years we see a radical rise of admin in schools while we're seeing the decrease of teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just ironic. Like who are teaching the kids? Is it the admins?
Yeah. Is there some? I'm sure there's some stat out there. Like I said, I can make this up. I just say shit. I don't read research. I just regurgitate. But like the percentage of actual teachers have gone down, like you said, and administrators have gone up. Like, do we really need like 5 admin people for every 1 teacher? Like,
yeah.
Do we? And then all this admin stuff, they just add stuff from the teacher, like all these forms and stuff. Like they're not really teaching. Like I'm sure there's something they're saying like for every hour of teaching, they spend like 3 hours doing admin stuff, right?
Yeah, and actually that's one of the things I think less people are pointing out about the broken education system, which is most people are saying on the perspective of the students. But when we think about it, the broken education system is also broken for the teachers. Mm-hmm. And that's why so many teachers are leaving the job. And we see, and apart, like there are different reasons. They are overworked, they are underpaid. And but I'm really optimistic about the future because I think AI is going to change that. AI is going and one of the I think I see educators sometimes they kind of rebel against AI, and that kind of goes back to what I believe Henry Ford was saying that you sometimes you can't ask for people and unless you actually put it out there, unless you actually show them what is it like. Actually, I think it's Steve Jobs, and that's how I feel about AI in education. I feel AI will do the heavy lifting, will do the most of the boring teaching aspect, the tutoring aspect, while teachers will stay. The best teachers will stay with things they actually care about, which is igniting the passion of students, making students accountable, build agency, and develop a real world view for them. And that's actually why people go into the teacher's view for most of people in the first place too.
And here's another thing with Department of Education, right? So supposedly they want the Department of Education to go away because like the Department of Education federal government gives all this money to the states and schools, right? Mm-hmm. My thing is like, where's this money going to, right? Because you hear all the stories all the time. Like I have a niece that's a teacher in Texas, and she'll put like, hey, I need donation to buy school supplies, right? Like if this Department of Education can't even provide basic necessities for teachers to teach kids, like you hear all the time teachers taking money out of their own pocket to pay for necessities, right? Like I just don't know, like I guess maybe DOGE needs to just do some kind of thing like to track the money from here to here. Like someone's siphoning it off, right?
Yeah, they're too busy building buildings. That's one of the things Mark Cuban said, I think, and in some way that's true. A lot of money is going to It still goes back to the monopoly, to the K-12 education, the college view. Most money are going to things that makes them good from the press view, from a really low level view from the public, or from the view of the states. Is maybe get a bigger buildings, build a fancy library, while they are not really spending the money on things that actually matters to the students, that actually make them succeed. Doesn't matter, regardless if it's about academic succeeding or real world succeeding.
So your take on this, right? So first of all, like, I'm not a communist. I believe capitalism, right? However, like I use Dallas, Texas as an example. There's a suburb called South Lake Carroll, right? All the homes like $1 million homes, right? And there's the South Dallas homes, like people who don't have homes, right? And so in the states, it's education is funded by property tax, right? So obviously, paying property tax off $1 million homes, you have a lot of money going to your school system, versus South Dallas with no money, right? Like, I don't know how you fix that, right? Like, I don't think you should like combine all the money together, but like, I don't know how you get around that, right? Do we need a different funding source? Should it be some kind of sales tax where everyone gets equal funding, right? Because like another thing too, like South Carroll, like $1 million homes, both parents probably make six figures. They're probably masters, So those kids have a hell of an advantage, right? Versus South Dallas for like maybe one parent homes, people on welfare, people struggling, right? And I just don't know how you fix that without doing socialism.
Yeah. Couple of things. One thing is education right now doesn't have a funding problem. They have an admin problem, meaning how they delegate the funding. So that's one possible, like you said, that's one possible way to really, it's really about the delegation. And the second, I largely, at least from my point of view, I largely believe that free market is what's going to push anything forward. Doesn't matter what kind of market it is. And I argue that because education was not a free market, that's one main reason why it's not paid the incentive of the customers, which are the parents, which are making the kids succeed. I think another thing that's worth to point out is there's a rise of school choice, and it's actually not here in Washington, but there are various states which basically saying the money, because public school are free, right? And that's from the funding. But instead of having the funding go directly to public schools, to allow the students to be to enroll for free, they put the funding under like a parent's account, which they can spend it on anything of their school choice, on their education. This means public school, private school, homeschooling, micro schools, and that will be a game changer for a lot of families.
So let me ask you this: like, I use the South Dallas and South Carroll example again.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think like how to put this? Like, suppose like students, and you can't do this because it's like an hour drive, right? That's too much, right? Do you think like people from like a lower level school should be able to allow to say, okay, you know what? I'm not having education here. I'm going to go to school at this better school district, right? But then again, like everyone would want to go to South Carolina, right? The education is top notch, right? Then how, and eventually their resources get drained out, right? So I don't know if that's a good answer either.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to have actually that's why I think AI will be a game changer for the education space, because you can use, if the platform, the online platform is good enough, you can use it anywhere. However, there's a couple of things. Well, one thing is there are a couple of things about human interaction that cannot be replaced by AI really well. One thing is about ignite the passion aspect, and the other thing is about real world kind of general advice for guidance in terms of like a high level mentorship. And we are trying to, and one vision for us Ponder to fix that is to, because we have the AI taking most of the low level mentorship, we can have like successful founders or industry expert who choose to do this part-time, who choose to go on the platform and mentor some of the kids who are working on this kind of project part-time, because they have main mentor already. But go back to what you were saying about the location wise. The other thing, there's the other thing that's irreplaceable, which is about real world actually, being presence and being in a physical environment, and that just require that just require a range of different schools, like micro schools, and to help with that to help to fix that local aspect. Uh, but but technology will definitely offset some of the difference while leveling the playing field, but it's not going to be perfectly flat.
I think another challenge too, just like a lot of these colleges are like they're like tone deaf to reality, right? Like back to COVID, right?
Mhm.
No one went to school, everyone is Zoom. But yet the college is still charging everyone like full tuition and stuff. Like how you charging these kids full tuition and you're not providing a classroom, right? It's just like stuff like that. And I know recently I saw in the news, I think University of Washington like increasing tuition or fees recently. Like I don't know how they justify that stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's going wild, and I think that's why there are more and more people saying trade school or community college seems or just not do college seems like a better option. And for the future of college, it's really about the ROI. It's really about how does one how can make sure the college students have a better return on investment if they want to still survive or they want to excel. However, I think college will stay relevant for a long time because they establish quite a bit. Like there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of parents, millions of parents who still are trying to who still believing deeply trying to get their kids into like elite college. And there are a lot of values here, like we talk about.
I mean, we got to have a place for our college football teams to be at, right?
Yeah, for sure. We got to be the college football, college sports, and yeah.
So from your point of view, what is the purpose of college? The purpose of college is like to get as smart as you can, to find a job, to be like a better person. Like, what do you think the purpose of college? Well, I mean, two-part question. What do you think the purpose of college is right now, and what should be the purpose of college?
Yes. The purpose of college right now is really networking, and which might seem not that relevant, but it's actually really important, especially consider the environment part. Like if you surround yourself with 30 driven students versus 30, students who are addicted to video game or vape, it's going to be a different experience, and then your life is going to be heading way different directions. And there are other like time management. The name really, even though most companies are shifting away, but it's still happening at least in 2025 that they care about the name. However, for the future of college, one thing is a lot of things in education or really in anything are concepts that people make up. Like I don't think like college is any institution, most institutions are really concepts people make up, and there's a lot to stress about the form versus the function. And what college need to educate the purpose of education is to help students to succeed in the real world. So it really largely depends as a whole how does college supplement that goal in compared to the high school and the middle school. But also it can be a go different direction. Like I do see college doubling down on what they are already doing, which is heavy on research, heavy on pushing deep like biology, chemistry on those fields, or like industry knowledge that's hyper specialized, which is like lawyer and the doctors, and that's another way to go. Like because for those things, like college is a really effective institution, but that's a different purpose than just generally help students succeed in the real world.
Yeah, some things you still need a degree for. Like if you want to be a physicist, you probably need a college degree, right?
Yeah.
If you want to be a lawyer, you need a college degree. There's certain things, like if you want to be a biologist, you need a college degree for. Others, maybe not, right?
Yeah, and the most of them are likely to be in the business field, in something that's really toward the consumers field. Yeah.
So how do you see Ponder making the future education better?
One of the thing I think, yes, I think a lot of people, a lot of tech founders, they say they want to change education system. We say the different. We say we're accelerating the ongoing reform, and that kind of goes back to the idea of we want to respect the demand on parents on what unconventional education look like. But the other thing from the educators I met, like after I post about what we're doing, I really have educators who reach out to us and be interested in it, is because the real world learning, the unconventional education market is a really underserved market. Like there is no one making technologies for educator reformers who are pushing how students should learn in the real world, and they are doing what I believe is the right thing, is to learning by doing. And there are some buzzwords like project-based learning, and that's around the world. We have schools from Europe, from Mexico from US are interested in this technology because it's designed specifically for those unconventional education educators.
So when was the last time you've been to China?
Um, I think actually 2 years ago.
Years ago? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some things about China that Americans are wrong about, right? Like what's like a Chinese stereotype that Americans think that are completely wrong? Or what about China do you wish more Americans knew about?
One thing, yeah, I think, there's this idea of patriarchy and nationalism. And I think one thing I really like about China or being Chinese is really the culture, like, and not like the current culture, but like the deep history it has. And a lot of it surprisingly align really well with Marcus Aurelius, with Stoic philosophy. And I made that connection with Greek philosophy from reading a lot of Asian Chinese book. And there's one like the Art of War being really popular in here. But there are a lot of more ideas, more books, like Lao Tzu, who write Dao De Jing. And however, there are certain ideas from China culture that is popularized, but not is what I believe is the right thing, which is like Confucianism, really emphasize the idea of leveling or bureaucracy, and I believe that's not, and I think a lot of people take Confucius like the guy for Asian Chinese culture, but he's really not, and he's actually one of the students from Lao Tzu, which is believing completely different things than he does. Well, I don't want to get because I don't want to get too sensitive about the Chinese politics things, but I do think because I might get in trouble if I fly back to China. But
so what's some things about America you wish more Chinese knew about?
A lot. Actually, America is radically different than I think the media in Chinese play, and one of the reasons is because the media in China does a really, I think it's actually really evil for them to censor or choosing what kind of information people see, and especially those people are likely to be teens, likely to be kids, likely to be young adults, and there's no way for them to figure out what is like in the real world, what is like in the real life how American actually is. I think there are certain things America do that more Chinese people should learn from. One of them is really the idea of being a giver. Like there's this book called Give and Take. I don't know if you read it, but it's really emphasized how the most successful individuals are givers. They provide value. Value after value, without seeking for return. Because in the long term, those kind of people always win. And that's not a thing in China. I think in China, so many business people, they focus on self-benefit. Like cold emailing, it wouldn't make any sense in China because nobody will reply to your cold email. And while here, you have networking event, you meet people want to help out, and you learn from other people. You can get mentors, while you can really do that the same thing in China.
And are you still going to networking events?
Not a lot actually. The reason why I went to UW is because I spoke there for EdTech Star. I think yes, like what Vlad told me is to extent there's a part reason why people go to networking event, and if the reason is because the ego or because they're kind of trying to BS themselves saying networking is working, then it's kind of lose the point because networking is not really working. Happy hour is a hobby for a reason.
Yeah, right. So what's your goal for Ponder like the next 6 months?
Yes, wrap up beta testing. I'm trying to find really crack software engineers actually, like A+ players, because there's a lot we had a lot of features delays. We have a lot of problems on the feature side. So that's one thing. But for me, just to get more tractions on the college student side, while still sending investor updates, so we can wrap up beta testing by July, and public launch by July, and raise a round of seed funding this summer.
So how many investor updates are you sending out? Like how many investors are you updating?
Around 5-ish.
5, okay, that's not bad.
And some of them are actually, like one of them is including a billionaire who I cold email.
So how do you make sure that they're they're really interested, right? Because a lot of investors, they never tell you no, right? They say, give me updates. They have no intent to invest, right? How do you make sure that you send in investor updates or dealing with people who actually like want to do business with you versus someone just saying, send me updates because they don't want to be telling you no just in case something happens?
Yeah, I think I'll give my answer, but I do think there's a lot of things I'm still figuring everything out, and I feel there's a lot of things that I don't know on that side, because that comes with experience. But I do believe being radically genuine, like being like from listening to different podcasts, from talking, asking mentors, like being create like insanely genuine about where you're at and what kind of challenge you are struggling with, what kind of problems you are solving, but also leaning back to the vision, the purpose. I think what people don't realize is every cold email don't make it about me, but make it about the other people. There's this rule of thumb I learned I really like is your cold email should have more the pronoun of you than the pronoun of I or me, and that's a powerful rule I stand for. Is I really to make sure they understand that I want them to be this part journey because of their vision of education.
So you're 18, you're pretty young. How do you make sure that people in this game, like 10, 20 years, don't take advantage of your inexperience, so to speak, right? How do you protect yourself against that?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it's kind of really, really critical thinking. And I mean, I'm probably doing a worse job than like a 30 years old, 40 years old experienced founder. But I do think I can. That's kind of the point. I can tolerate the risk. I just need to make sure what's the worst thing that can happen, and make sure that I can tolerate the risk and just go do it. Because while I'm young, I can afford making mistakes, but I can't afford to being scared of making mistakes and just stop or not doing anything. Because I think in this age, really the biggest risk one can take is to not take any risk.
Yeah. So you already talked about your company some, but can you go into more detail, like why you started the company, what you focus on now, what your like big dream vision is for Ponder moving forward?
Yeah. Start of it is I want actually I had this some sort of idea of starting an ed tech couple years back, like when I was 16, when I was starting out reaching out to people, and I actually reached out to a lot of like ed tech founders and investors, and they all told me one thing. They all told me, no, Zion, don't start an ed tech startup. And I asked them why. They told me, it's a hard space. You're not going to make a profit. And none of the ed tech they invested in have make a return yet. And also the thing I'm talking about education is more about revolution. Is more about like a social reform than like a successful startup idea. But in 2024. I personally started seeing signals of homeschooling, signals of this reform actually happening, but I didn't decide to start Ponder. But actually, I talked with I was talking with Vlad a lot, and Vlad was telling me one thing. I asked him this question. I asked him, marketing agency is such a saturated space. If there are so many competitors, why are you still working on marketing agency? And he told me, the harder the market is, it means the bigger pie there is if you are in the market, if you are staying in the market. And he said that to tell me to double down on marketing agency, but ironically, I took it into like an ed tech startup view. I actually trying to figure out why the ed tech it's so hard for ed tech, and I think I did, and then I just started a tech startup, and it wasn't the outcome he was expecting too. He was like, this is going to be hard, but like, what's the thing? The hard thing is usually the thing that's meaningful to do.
And how are you finding these ed tech investors? What's your process of finding ed tech? Because obviously, you don't need to reach out to someone investing in like climate or consumer. Like how do you find these ed tech investors?
Cold emails, doing research. I think people. Yeah, I think people a lot. I think I did that too. Is we are all inherently lazy, meaning there are a lot of things one can get from actually going on Google and searching and going on different places and doing the so-called unnecessary work. but instead most people and me a lot of times just saying, oh, this is not going to work. What if they do that? And that back to the agency topic. It's a signal of low agency. But yeah, cold email. I also met this guy, this founder of like a platform. He really nice. He sent me like a Google sheet with all the tech investors, and that's like thousands of them in US and around the world.
Well, tell me with those lists, like, does it say like when is the last time I invested? How much they invest? Like so many details those lists you don't have.
It was more about contacts,
Yeah.
companies, and I just got to do the research. And I don't batch, send them cold email either. I think the point of cold email, yeah, that's I guess one advice I figure out is whoever you cold email, it has to be really really relevant. Like I cold email Mark Cuban, he never replied me. And another thing, everybody cold email Mark Cuban because that's what people know. But the best person to really reach out to build a rapport on is really the one that are really low key, the one are undertone under the market, but incredibly relevant to what you are building and incredibly able to resonate with what you're doing. And that take works to find, but that's kind of how it is.
Yeah. Do the people at your school, like your teachers, know you're building this?
I don't think my teachers know much.
Okay.
I have students. I don't talk about it because I feel there's a danger of talking with people.
Yeah.
And you can just say, oh, I'm going to get I'm going to get abs, or I'm going to hit a gym, or you're kind of getting the dopamine of saying it instead of doing it. But people find out regardless. People go on LinkedIn and they see I'm posting LinkedIn posts and they dig deeper. And I think sometimes you gotta be okay with that. But also sometimes I think that's what school make it incredibly hard to be different. And I put on covers, or I use jokes, I use irony to put like a different version of myself in front of people who I think I don't want to be genuine to.
So how does Panda make it? Like, how is Panda successful? Whatever success means for you. Like, what needs to happen for Panda to be what you want to become?
Yeah. One thing, a lot of it is about value. I think everything goes back to money or successful or definition. It all goes back to how much value you can provide to how many people. And my goal in a micro view is really to build a product that can actually help every kid around the world to learn soft skills, real world skills, that things will help them to succeed in their careers through a project they actually like, they love, their own project ideas. And we want our AI to help them guide them through the progress, so they don't say they quit. They don't say, oh, they spent months wasting on this thing, while the real thing to do is actually that thing. And that means without, and even though they don't have much resource, they don't have much money, they don't have a good network.
And then how does Panda fail? What's going to have to happen for Panda to like fail?
Execution. I think that's what most startup, that's how most startup fail, is from the execution, how to execute. I have ideas on, going on track, and I have ideas, but also I'm on a incredibly, like, I just hop out of calls with one of my mentor this weekend, and he was saying that you're on an incredibly hard position with your O1A visa, with your F1 visa, because there are a lot of things you can do, and your time horizon is really short. And I think that's a great thing. The tough, hard environment make tough men. But require me to somehow execute it, especially outside school, with 3 or 4 hours per day, and the whole weekends, to reach out to more people, to get traction, to raise this round of funding, and to get engineers to make sure we are always improving our product based on the business feedback.
And so you're actually on spring break this week, right?
Yes, I am.
So like you're on spring break now. You have summer vacation coming up. Well, you graduate this year, right?
I graduate next year.
Okay, so you have spring break now, summer vacation. Pretty much everyone else is like having a good time doing spring break stuff, just high school stuff where you have to like focus on your business, right? Is there anything that you think you're gonna miss? Like you're like, man, I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that.
Yeah. I think going to you gotta choose what you're gonna miss out on. and everybody's miss out on something.
Mhm.
Things I'm going to miss out, a lot of it is social, a lot of it is things that teens like to do. Maybe it's going on dates, maybe it's going on vacations, maybe it's going traveling around the world, maybe it's just hang out, play golf with people, which I used to do, and honestly, and it was fun. But uh, yeah, it's not just average. Usually people can succeed. Not just anybody can succeed, and I think to get extraordinary outcome, you gotta do what other people
So
don't
do you ever
do.
think to yourself, like, I'm 18, what the fuck am I doing this for? Like, like what's wrong with me? Like, I should be enjoying my life. I should be doing high school life. I'm doing shit I could be doing later on in life.
I think one thing that's affirming to me is I see other people at my age doing the same, but they are not necessarily on a local. That's one. I guess that's one blessing for internet, which is I met people who are similar age doing incredible things over the internet. But uh, I feel a lot of it. The reason why I started because as a lot of people, I have this question. Why am I here? What I'm going to? What's the existence crisis, right? And I just thought if everybody gonna die some days, everybody gonna die, in the next 50 years,
Mhm.
80 years, then you just got, how do you make it meaningful? And then my definition of it is really do something to the world that people will remember me by, or that can actually contribute to humanity. And at that time, the biggest problem I realized today still is, which is education is broken. People are wasting the best 20 years of their life in education, and I want to fix that.
So was the goal, you do want to do an IPO? You want to keep the company for the rest of your life and give it to your kids? What's the goal for the company?
I don't. The goal for the company is really going back to what I want to get out of it is really change the way how kids learn. I want everybody to be using Ponder, or everybody to using something. Maybe will fail, maybe because execution or something will fail, but I still believe this market or this idea will be capitalized by some other competitors, and other people will do some sort of that. It just I hate wasting time. Like when I'm in school every day, I kind of know I'm wasting time, and I hate that, and I don't want anybody to do the same
I
thing.
bet you're like in school, like on your phone doing business and shit.
I wish that my school take away my phone.
Oh, does it?
Yeah,
Oh, man. Okay.
and that's one thing. They start taking, they start taking away
Mhm.
devices. There are good arguments. What I'm thinking the education the schools are is, my analogy is like a car. It's like a broken down car. It's so old where you have paint filling out, and people are trying, and there are different problems, but people are trying to add different things, add a better AC, add a fan, external things to help to make that car run. While the best thing to do is just burn the car and build a new car.
Yeah. So what if somebody came to you, I'm totally make this up, and they said, hey, I'm from the old school. I don't think nothing education is the same. I don't think what you're doing is wrong. And that make you stop, here's $10 million. Like they'll give you like this big crazy amount of money for you to stop building it.
I think I will take it and then build it.
Yeah.
I'll take it and I will just stop Ponder again
Yeah.
under a different name. But
Yeah.
I'm joking. But yeah, I think uh, one thing there, I'll answer in two ways. The first, I have people who kind of saying, oh, they believe in that quite opposite thing, and a lot of this are some of them are educators really, and who I believe have this tunnel vision, but but really, it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what I think. It really matters the execution, like who is going out there and making it happen.
Mhm.
And I think Lincoln says something like the best way to predict the future is to create it. And so I believe in this. I'm going out there and to making it happen. And I don't like to argue with people on Twitter or LinkedIn. Yeah.
So Zhang, is there anything else that I asked you that I haven't, or anything else you want to talk about?
um. I think there's I want to talk more about like agency actually. I think because there's this I think the agency will be a lot more relevant for the next couple of decades, especially in education. And to define agency is really um disagreeability, meaning contrary thoughts, plus critical clear thinking, and plus executions. And I think I think agency is something that people are not talking about, but it actually awake my life. For example, like one just starting off to go into sort of networking event, right? I feel I was somewhat socially awkward because I was 17 years old. Literally the next day, I got advice on saying you gotta go to a networking event. I didn't think twice. I just go did it. But I kind of knew that I don't think that's how people network, and I wasn't. I was going really straightforward. Oh, what's your LinkedIn? Oh, yeah, yeah. That's interesting. What are you doing? And but I was trying to really hard to have a conversation, and I thought I was so weird because I thought every time I had something I want to do, I just go do it, and sometimes and most of the time I don't get like a good first time result. Like usually, it's like something a mistake or like something doesn't give good outcome. And I thought it was something wrong with me, but then after I learned about agency, I think I realized that just like an example of what agency to me look like as you go out there and build that thing. While and sometimes in the reverse way, I feel in my life, I I need to be I need to use more agency. I need to build this high agency myself. While I'm procrastinating, while I'm thinking what's wrong, what might be wrong with this and that. Well, right now I can just tell myself, oh, that's a signal of low agency. You can just do it.
Can you say your social media so people can reach out to you?
Yeah, my social media, Zhang on LinkedIn and on Twitter. Uh, that's kind of it. That's the only two platforms.
Me too to use, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Before we get out of here, can you give us any wisdom or advice or anything you want to talk about?
yeah. I think everybody is figuring it out. Really, I am really new to the journey. I'm learning a lot from other people. And one thing that most people don't the reason why most people don't choose to do what they do is they thought those who achieve their dream outcome, the successful people are perfect adults. For example, they think Steve Jobs is perfect. They think Sam Altman is perfect. But the reality is everybody has nobody is perfect, and Steve Jobs is far from perfect. Like he has this story of saying he doesn't undergo he died because of cancer, right? But a part reason of why he died because of cancer is because he didn't believe in the doctor. He pushed the surgery for years, while in the meantime he was trying to drink carrot juice as his sole meal to help relieving cancer, while everybody tell him to not to, and that leave disaster outcome. That's why he died so young. But yeah.
Yeah, I heard that story. Yeah, I've heard that story.
Yeah.
So there's all these entrepreneurs out there, like say Sam Altman, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Alex Hormozy. Is there like one entrepreneur out there, or like you kind of like I almost like follow the way everything you do, like okay, like this is like the entrepreneur, like I want to be the like, or like is such a good example for you think?
I think right now a lot of one thing is I like reading biographies, and that taught me a lot about people like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, and I think there are a lot of similarities. So I probably say trying to be one of them is kind of become all of them in some way. While of course they mostly are like on the mindset aspect. For example, nothing is impossible unless it's physically impossible. But right now what I'm being following the most are Naval Ravikant and Alex Hormozy, because they post a lot, they tweet a lot, and I see their tweet every single day.
I read somewhere that Alex Hormozy used to post like 350 times a day or something crazy.
Yeah, he's I mean he's doubling down on personal branding. So yeah, and so those two are kind of I follow regularly, like on a daily basis. But I feel the best person, really everybody's goal for their role model should be the future selves, the future version of themselves in 5 years or 20 or 10 years.
That's a great answer. Zhang, thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
And to our listeners, thank you for your time as well. Remember to be great every day.